On July 6, 2026, a Chinese nuclear submarine did something it had never done in public before. Submerged somewhere in the Pacific, it launched a ballistic missile, the kind designed to carry a nuclear warhead across an entire ocean. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't hidden. China notified regional governments in advance. So, why launch a nuclear-capable missile on purpose, in public, for the first time ever? Let's break down what this test actually proves, and why it's making 3 different countries nervous. Here are the facts. China's Navy launched a submarine-launched ballistic missile, SLBM for short, from a nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine into international waters in the Pacific. The missile carried a dummy warhead, not a real one, and landed in a designated impact zone after China gave advance notice to nearby governments. This is China's first publicly acknowledged SLBM test of this kind into the Pacific. It follows an earlier test in September 2024, when China launched a land-based intercontinental ballistic missile roughly 11,000 kilometers, landing near French Polynesia. Together, these 2 tests show China deliberately practicing long-range nuclear strike procedures under conditions that look a lot like a real wartime scenario. Here's the part that actually matters strategically. A missile fired from a submarine is fundamentally different from one fired from a fixed location on land. A land-based missile silo has a known location. An enemy can target it. A submarine, especially one submerged in open ocean, is nearly impossible to find and destroy before it can respond. That's called a second strike capability, the ability to still retaliate even after being hit first. It's one of the core pillars of nuclear deterrence. This test wasn't really about the missile itself. It was about proving China can do everything required to actually use that capability. Receive an authenticated launch order, maintain secure communications while submerged, determine its exact position, align the missile's navigation system, and execute the full underwater launch sequence, all under conditions built to simulate an actual wartime order. That's a much bigger deal than just testing whether a missile flies correctly. The timing wasn't lost on anyone in the region. On the exact same day as this test, Australia and Fiji signed a new mutual defense agreement, the Ocean of Peace Pact, committing to support each other if either is attacked. Australia's government called the Chinese launch destabilizing. New Zealand pointed out that the missile impacted inside the South Pacific Nuclear Free Zone, an area specifically protected under a 1986 treaty. And Japan raised its own concerns, warning against any ballistic missile activity that could send trajectories anywhere near Japanese airspace. And none of these countries claimed China broke any law. The test used international waters and advance notice. But the reaction shows how a routine military exercise can still function as a message, a demonstration of reach and capability, aimed as much at the neighborhood as at any specific adversary. Zoom out, and this fits a clear pattern. China has spent the last decade building a naval nuclear deterrent to match the US and Russia's, submarines capable of hiding in the ocean and striking back if the country is ever attacked first. If future submarines carry longer-range missiles, China could patrol from waters much closer to home, while still holding distant targets at risk, which makes them dramatically harder for the US and its allies to track. This test is a signal that China's undersea deterrent isn't just theoretical anymore. It's being rehearsed like a system that's meant to actually work under pressure, not just sit in reserve. A missile with a dummy warhead landing safely in open ocean doesn't sound like history. But this test wasn't about the payload, it was about proving China can move a nuclear deterrent from paper to practice. That's the kind of capability shift that doesn't make for dramatic headlines, but quietly changes how every other Pacific power has to plan. If you want the next video breaking down how second strike capability actually shapes nuclear strategy and why submarines are so hard to find in the first place, let me know in the comments.